Hello, sellers. Welcome to the shipping session for the holiday breakout or for the holiday update. Really excited to have you here and really excited to get to share updates of what we've been working on or for the past year to be able to improve your business. Wanted to go through a little bit of what to expect with this session so that you have some more information. Just what we're going to go through. So high level first, we're going to initially go into a breakout of some of the items that have happened over the last year with eBay International Shipping. And then from there, I'm going to be able to bring on some of my peers on the shipping team. We'll bring on Nate Hayward, who will be able to help us with some of the questions around eBay standard envelope. And then also be able to bring on Kelly McIntyre, who really leads our domestic space with anything related to estimated delivery dates, USPS, FedEx, UPS, and then we'll get into we'll be able to answer any of your questions. So for the first few minutes, we're going to do a targeted update on eBay International Shipping, and then we'll spend the balance of the time, probably 20 minutes or so, being able to go through any of your questions. So please put them in the Q&A now. We have teams that are also answering your questions, but from there, they're going to be raising themes of what you want us to address live in the conversation. And so we'll try to address as many possible, whether through just responding in the Q&A or also address them directly live so we can make sure as many people see and hear the questions as possible. So moving forward, with eBay International eBay International Shipping, I think we've had this program live for about 2 years now. Many of you, or hopefully all of you, have experienced it at this point. But it's really been a journey as we've launched the program, tried to bring it and bring it to many sellers as possible, expand the program, make it simple to use. With this program, though, what we wanted to do as we built it was make sure that it was as simple as possible for sellers to ship internationally, expand their reach to buyers worldwide without having to deal with the complexity of international shipping, whether that complexity be customs, what can ship where, how expensive shipping is, returns, etc. We wanted to be able to expand your buying base without having you deal with the challenges that come with it. And that's really been a lot of the focus this year. Throughout the year, we've made several improvements. I'm just going to touch on a few of them here. If there's additional questions you have on others, we're happy to address them. But earlier this year, we expanded the reach of eBay International Shipping to first Puerto Rico. Now, obviously, Puerto Rico isn't an international location. It's a domestic location within the US. However, what we also learned from talking to many sellers was that shipping to Puerto Rico in some cases could be difficult, particularly if you offered free domestic shipping, because it's a longer shipment. It costs more for you to get your packages there. And so as a result, it became an opportunity for us to help address some of that complexity for you by being able to show your buyers eBay International Shipping as an additional option. Now, if you already offer shipping to Puerto Rico on your own, eBay International Shipping does not overwrite that option. It simply complements it. And so it gives the buyer some additional choices of how they want to get their item, allowing you to get higher conversion and see more sales going to buyers in that area. Now, the second thing that we've done this year, earlier in the year, I think the second quarter of the year, is we also announced a new feature that is for country exclusions. Now, historically, many sellers have managed which countries their items can go to by simply going into either on their listings or at an account level and blocking individual countries so that their items wouldn't show up to those countries or buyers couldn't see them. Now, as part of eBay International Shipping, we set up this entirely optional feature where it allows eBay International Shipping or eBay to control which countries an item would go to based upon the customs restrictions, the prohibited items for that particular type of item. This again allows us to expand where your buying base is without any additional risk to you. So buyers in that country, if there was as you expand to those additional countries, if there was a challenge with a buyer related to a lost item or a return, all of that simply comes as the protections that we offer as part of the program. Finally, the third thing that we've done, and this is really a more recent launch, and I don't think we've really announced a lot around it yet, was last year we launched the ability to combine shipments through the program, meaning that buyers that were purchasing multiple items at the same time would be able to put those items in their cart, and then from there we would be able to determine what the weight of the item of that cart was and offer a discount to those buyers. Now, when we launched in December of 2023, really we're only able to start with about 50% of the categories featured through the program. And in recent months, what we've done is be able to expand that. Now, we're still not quite up to 100% of those categories because there are specific categories with limitations that are where, for example, categories with batteries are a little bit hard to determine. Can it be combined? Because there's some regulations around how many wattage hours can be in a specific package. And so we're working on enhancements to be able to bring those categories on. But at this point, we're at about 90% of all shipments that have run through the program historically, which is also about 90% of the categories. So we're continually trying to make the program better, give your buyers cheaper costs, knowing that international shipping is expensive. And the more that we can make it so that buyers can get 2, 3, 4 items in one package, it'll lower their costs, drive more sales for you, and make it easier to be able to ship specifically certain types of items that naturally flow with combined shipments. Now, so we're going to move forward into the Q&A session, part of this session. I'm going to bring on my additional team members. So Nate and Kelly Jo are going to come on and join me at this point, and we will be happy to answer any of your questions throughout the next 25 minutes or so. While we're waiting for Nate, Kelly, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Kelly Jo McIntyre, as Chad said, a peer of Chad's, and I focus primarily on domestic shipping space. My team does a lot with the experience, trying to ensure that we can get it as smooth as possible. And then also a lot with the labels platform for domestic labels.
So one of the questions that jumped out to me, I think there's a question on international from Philip Pham regarding a lost item. So on that item, I think my team's already responded to you there, Philip. So really, if you could reach out to us, let us know what type of shipment. We can do some additional research. High level for everyone, with eBay International Shipping at least, if you get the item to our hub, from that point, we take on responsibility. So any item that gets lost, either at the hub, which we absolutely try to prevent, or internationally, from that point on, the moment it shows up, you have a delivery scan at our hub, we take responsibility for it. Now, there are some additional programs out there that you need to be aware of and have a slightly different value proposition for you as a seller. We also offer a program called eBay International Standard Delivery, which we use a lot of the same facilities for, but the value proposition for that program is slightly different. It's a lower cost, less bells and whistles type of program. Now, in that program, one of the things that we do is when you ship it to us, we automatically give you $100 worth of insurance. And so that program doesn't have the full protections of eBay International Shipping. It's meant to be lower cost, meant to be a program that facilitates some lightweight, low cost items. And so slightly different experience, slightly different protections. We want to ensure that you're using the right program, at least what we recommend, right program for the right type of inventory. And so on higher dollar inventory where there's more risk, we certainly recommend that you use the eBay international shipping program. And for those lighter weight, lower cost items, you have more options. I still would recommend that you use eBay international shipping, but it's less of a must-do relative to the protections you may be looking for. So in the Q&A though, we did provide our email so that you can provide us the transaction information so we can go through and do some additional review for you. So it looks like I'm going to be a one-man show for a little bit while we get some technical difficulties figured out. So I'm just going to, as I said, go through some of the Q&A and look at some of these questions. So there's some questions that are popping up specific to EU laws. I think some of these are really relevant to possibly some of you have heard the acronym EPR, or really, which is a recycling law within the EU, and there's some additional laws relative to product safety, product ownership. Now, with eBay International Shipping, we facilitate all of the product recycling regulations for you shipping into the EU. So there's no need for you to go out and pay any of those recycling fees or procure any services from anyone else. We do that automatically for you in eBay International Shipping. However, on some of the product safety requirements, that's a lot more difficult because we don't necessarily have the expertise related to what the item is, how it was inspected, how it was created, did it follow EU law? And so at least as it pertains to product safety requirements, and I'm thinking in particular, there are also requirements for authorized trade representatives that facilitate some communication between the EU and yourselves. For those particular laws, at this point, though, you are still responsible for compliance with those laws. However, we are working on trying to make it as simple as possible for you to comply and provide the right information in the listing flow. And then in the future, we're also looking at how do we provide services to you that enable compliance. Now, we're not ready to announce anything or share anything there, but those are something we're looking at in the long term to make it easier for you going forward. Now, Kelly, I see in the chat a question really related to buyer concerns on delivery dates during peak. Anything you want to address there?
So I got dropped and I just got back in. So is it just in general delivery dates? Because I'm just getting caught up on the Q&A.
Yeah, it looks like just in general related to delivery dates, but particularly during peak season. Anything around guarantees or how do we do our best to make sure buyers get their packages by the holidays?
Yeah. So I think Stu shared a little bit of this, but in the main session, but some more details. We work really closely with the carriers during the entire peak season, and we're getting a lot of data from them. We are making adjustments to estimated delivery dates, sometimes more than one time a day. And so we do try to stay attuned to what's going on in the network. We do increase estimated delivery dates where we do see delays. We do this at a pretty granular level sometimes. But also as a seller, remember, ultimately you are protected as long as you ship within your stated handling time. And then we do our best to give the buyer the right expectation and to manage estimated delivery dates. So we'll stay really close to this peak season. We've kind of already kicked it off, but we're making pretty regular adjustments.
Very good.
There's also a couple questions. Sorry, Chad. There was a couple questions
no worries.
about rates, and then I saw one about peak rates with what Stu had said on the main session too, and I know there was some answer, but just overall, there were some peak increases from the carriers. We published an announcement of how it applies to your labels when you purchase on eBay, as not everything the carriers published does apply to eBay. So for specific details, I would go look at that announcement. We published, I think, October 21st. But Matthew also mentions how he started seeing that FedEx, and I think it's FedEx Ground Economy and maybe UPS Ground Saver. You're seeing some lower rates than Ground Advantage, where Ground Advantage had typically been cheaper. I think some of that is an effect of how the carriers are managing their peak rates, where we do see economy and ground saver to have some lower rates in areas. So I would encourage you to look at the rates available when you go to print your label, and choose the service that is going to give the right buyer expectation too. Because remember, at listing time, we use what service you said so we can tell a buyer when to expect it.
So it looks like we're getting some questions about ESE. Did we want to try to wait for Nate or?
Okay, Angie, thank you for the feedback about the Florida hubs. I hadn't seen an increase in those lately, but we'll dig into that and see if we're missing something. So I appreciate that feedback. And it looks like Nate's just not going to be able to get it working. So we'll try our best to answer the questions on his behalf. I see a lot of questions on international, Chad. Have you?
Yeah, I'm just looking through.
Angie, we do see cost adjustments, not just FedEx. We see it from all of the carriers. It is important to put accurate weights and dimensions. And I know that there are still sometimes cost adjustments that happen when you do put the accurate dimensions. They are measured by a machine, and so there can be errors. The vast majority of adjustments we see are legitimately assessed by the carrier, but we do still see errors. And so if you're seeing them where you're certain the package dimensions weren't right, you can report that and you can dispute the adjustment. We'll work with the carrier on your behalf to try to get it reversed where it makes sense. But we do see it from all of the carriers, yes.
From Dominic, there's a question on toys and collectibles and being able to ship things into the UK. Really across the eBay platform for over the last year, we've been limiting some categories into the UK. This is really driven by new UK regulations related to specific types of items, particularly ones that could end up in the hands of children. And so as they've increased their overall product safety regulations, it's required us to be able to limit the amount of the types of listings or the types of items going into the UK relative to their regulations. We're constantly working on and trying to create opportunities to be able to ship items in. But given just the regulatory environment right now, that's the reason of why we're prohibiting or restricting so many different types of listings, particularly these toys, some that involve some other items that involve plugs or other electronics. The regulatory environment is just really restrictive. And then from Paul, there's a question on harmonized tariff codes. Something that we've looked at a couple of different ways. In our managed program, so in eBay International Shipping as well as eBay International Standard Delivery, we provide the harmonized tariff codes for you because obviously the item is going through our programs. We're controlling more of the shipment for you. But on your own, it's something that we've looked at. We'll take a look again. It's definitely a challenge to be able to provide the right harmonized tariff codes. My experience is it's much more of a specialized type of situation with international, and as a result, I wouldn't necessarily expect a seller to have full knowledge of all of the different tariff codes, how they apply, how they work. And so we definitely want to make it as simple as possible. So we'll take another look and come back.
Great. Cindy, on lost packages, for a typical domestic transaction, the seller is responsible for delivery to the buyer. So most of your shipping labels like USPS Ground Advantage and UPS and FedEx Ground Services offer $100 of eligibility coverage or coverage of insurance. And so you should file a claim with them if you've got an acceptance scam, but they've lost the package. But ultimately, the seller is responsible for delivery to the buyer. With our eBay International service, it's a little bit different, Chad, if you wanted to answer that side of it, if it does go through EIS.
Yeah, for anything that goes to EIS gets to the hub. Excuse me. Anything that gets to our domestic location, our hub in Chicago, at that point, you're protected. So no need to file a claim. If there is an item not received request open, we'll take care of, make sure that you're protected, your buyer will be refunded, and then from there, no additional consequences for you. You'll get to keep the sale.
There are so many great questions here. It's hard to get through them. And we'll continue to respond to the questions in the chat too. So
yeah, so we'll keep doing the online Q&A through about a quarter till, and then from there we'll stay on to answer the questions in chat until we can get as many or all of them answered as possible.
Yeah, and there's a question about, it was kind of more of a comment of an item getting scanned next to another one, which caused that cost adjustment. That's pretty much exactly where we see the errors happen. And we see it with like flat packages often because it's not uncommon to have a package on top of it. I don't know that I would say it's necessarily improved. I know all of the carriers do try to improve their accuracy over time, but we do still see where a package gets scanned next to another one. So I'm glad you finally got it resolved. It's unfortunate it took a month to get it done, but where you do have that, do report them. We'll dispute those charges. So Chad, what resources does eBay provide for handling international shipping challenges, especially with customs delays? Your program. Let us do it for you.
Yep. So it really depends upon what level of how much control you want, whether you want to ship on your own or you want to really have have eBay do it for you. And so, let me drop that off. And then with eBay International Shipping, we take care of all of this for you. So we facilitate customs clearance, we facilitate the shipment to the buyer. So if you're really looking for a risk-free type program where you get your item to us, at which point we take care of it and then get the item to your buyer for the lowest cost possible, as well as for the least risk, eBay International Shipping is the right program to use. Now, if you're adamant you want to do it on your own, it's obviously a little bit more challenging. You're going to have to deal with some of the customs clearance. At that point, at the very least, I recommend leveraging services that provide insurance. Now, recognize you're still going to have to go through the hassles of filing claims if something unfortunate were to happen.
Okay, and Simona clarified, she meant has the response time improved and how long it takes to get it resolved. I actually don't know what the average time is. All the ones that I've been involved in haven't taken a month, but I will look into that and see, because we don't want it to take a month to do. So unfortunately, I don't have an answer.
Following up on a question from Jane, there's not really countries that can take a little longer in terms of I suppose certain countries we have more specialized carriers for, at which point it could take maybe a day or 2 to 3 days max to get the carrier that we're using to that country to pick up, consolidate enough packages to pick up the items. Now, where we see more of the challenges are specific types of items that either require further inspection, further preparation. And when I say inspection, what we're trying to do is prep the item such that it clears customs as swiftly and as possible. And so in certain cases, that may require additional paperwork, preparation on the documentation that we give to the carrier in the event of items that may be considered dangerous goods. Example is lithium batteries. We're also doing all of the work to prep the package, put the right marks in the labels on it, which just takes more time to do the processing, at which point we are doing all of that work before it leaves. And then finally, the only other one that I could think of that may take a little longer is higher dollar items. We're trying to really treat those as white glove. So when they come to us, we make sure that we take pictures of all of your things that have come to us, those items, so that I know when you ship them directly to buyers, there's always a risk of a buyer doing something unfortunate with the item. We're also cognizant if we want to make sure that those sorts of things don't happen in the program. Even though you're protected in the event of a return, we don't want it to happen within the program overall. So we are, at least if it's a new item, we don't open the box, but otherwise we're taking pictures, we're making sure that what went out is the right item. And so those may take a little bit more processing, but in general, we have everything out of the hub within about 3 business days. Now, 95% plus goes out same day or next day.
That's great. Connie asked if she can print the label at a USPS kiosk. When you go to generate your label on eBay, you can choose to generate a QR code, which you can then take into the post office and have them print your label for you. And Nate, you're going to have to use head gestures to make sure I get this right. But USPS has some kiosks that you cannot use the QR code to generate. And those are the kiosks that they've had that are for payment. But they have introduced these new kiosks into many of their locations, and it's growing, which is a rapid drop-off kiosk, I think. And you can take your QR code to that kiosk to print your label. Is that right, Nate? The first one you're saying, the SSK kiosk, they can use a QR code. There we go. I got it half right. So yes, you could generate a QR code and then print your label at the kiosks.
For Barbara Colson, selling items to the EU, if you're not doing anything with toys, electronics, anything that may require what is called a CE mark, you should be fine to continue to ship to the EU. And if it were the UK, if it doesn't require what we call a CA mark, you should be fine as well.
Great. And I see a lot of great feedback in here. So just know, even if we didn't respond to it directly, some of the feedback that you shared, we will take this back to the teams and we'll consolidate it. So we do appreciate from everybody. And I think that's that time.
Yep. So we're going to wrap. We'll continue to answer questions in the chat, and then appreciate all the feedback, appreciate the time, as well as you selling on eBay. And we'll be back in a few months with to answer additional questions. Otherwise, please feel free to put any further questions, and we'll try to get through as many as possible. Thank you and happy holidays.